Our next award is induction into the Off Broadway Hall of Fame, and part of the mission of the Alliance is to honor the legacy and history of Off Broadway. And we do this by remembering extraordinary members of our community whose life and work helped make Off Broadway what it is. And we want to remember them because we admire what they've done and we admire their generosity. We're grateful for their generosity, and because they continue to inspire us to make our own contributions to keep this extraordinary thing of ours alive and thrive. And I'm going to talk about a man who I really loved and who was a mentor to me, the theater lawyer Donald Farber. He was an innovator, a pioneer, a mentor, and a guardian angel to generations of theater artists and producers. And when I first met him, I couldn't get over how warm and easy and welcoming he was, because after all, he was Don Farber, the man who quite literally wrote the book on Off Broadway, a book that every aspiring producer uses it as an introduction to the field, the seminal, enormously influential, and enduring From Option to Opening. If you meet for the last, I don't know how many years, decades, if you meet a young, aspiring off-Broadway producer, they're carrying around this little book like it's the Bible. And as I got to know him, I started to realize the source of his ease and generosity was simple. He was just bursting with the joy of living. He loved his work, he loved discovering new things and passing them on to his colleagues and students. He was a born mentor and teacher and counselor because it was all such fun for him. In a wonderful interview for Primary Stages, Off-Broadway's Oral History Project that Casey Childs is doing, I don't know if anyone's seen any of those, they're quite wonderful. Don tells the story of how Laurie Noto, who owned an advertising agency and knew nothing about the theater, asked Don to help him produce an odd little musical that was still in development. Don also knew nothing about theater at the time, and he said, "Sure, I'll be happy to help." And Don and his wife Ann had backers auditions in their living room, and Don invented what would be the structure for commercial off-Broadway productions for the next, the show was the Fantastics. Those people who put in like $100, at that first backer audition are still getting checks, so that's a nice thing. It ran for 50 years, it continues to be produced around the world. A few years later, Don represented and advised another pioneer, Rosetta Lenoir, as she established the first not-for-profit African-American musical theater company, Amos Musical Theater, founded 50 years ago, which was to present opportunities for actors of color in integrated productions with something that we now call non-traditional casting. Rosetta Lenoir pioneered it way back when. And in addition to writing the book on Off-Broadway, Don Farber also wrote a comprehensive 8-volume, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it matters to me, an 8-volume treatise on entertainment law contracts. That is, you really should read it. It's a great read. It's referred to and relied on by entertainment attorneys all over the country. So the result of this is that there are plenty of clients sitting in their lawyer's office in New York and LA who are still receiving legal advice from Don Farber, although they don't know it. Their attorneys are crippling like I do. So Don's extraordinary sweetness and generosity, his radiant pleasure in life, his obvious delight in his wife Annie, his sweetheart, partner, collaborator, and the love of his life made us all love him, and that's why we're happy and proud to honor his memory. Here to accept the Off-Broadway Hall of Fame Award for Don Farber, please help me welcome Don's wife and his daughter, Anne, and his daughter Patricia.
short and sweet because Peter basically said a lot of things that I wanted to say, but I want to thank the Off Broadway Alliance and Peter Breger for honoring my dad with this most prestigious award. Our family is extremely touched. My parents, and I say parents because they were one, and anybody that knew them knew that. You hired my dad, but with that came my mom, my beautiful mom. Mom had her own career, but their life was firmly placed in the theater. From them, the journey started in 1959 when they were invited to see a small play up at Barnard College. Tom Jones and Barbie Schmidt wrote the Fantastic for a summer theater try-up there. After its off-Broadway opening in May of 1960, it went on to become the longest-running production in the history of the American theater stage, and it was the most frequently produced musical in the world. The Sullivan Theater, many of you probably remember, was its home, and it became a defining moment in my parents' love for off-Broadway theater. In my dad's book, From Option to Opening, which he wrote in 1968, it was a guide for producing plays off-Broadway. He said, "We ran to see theaters in barns, in attics, in warehouses, and garages. The play was the thing. The 60s was a time of creativity, sensitivity, dedication, and devotion to the art. The only reason for making money then was to stay alive so that the play could open the next day." They'd be downtown at the Theater de Leash on Christopher Street, which no longer is that name. And then the next night they'd be up in Harlem at the New Lafayette Theater. Many of you might remember. My father loved what he did, and he always told me to love what you do and do what you love. He considered himself the luckiest guy on the earth. Those who knew him and loved him know what a softie he was. The minute my dad entered a theater, his eyes would begin to start to tear. And he always told me it was because it was the lighting. It was the lighting. Every show, it was the lighting. But I knew it was deeper than that. I knew it. He was overcome with the love for the actors, for the stage, for the play. He worked up until the day he could no longer read or write. The last play he saw was downtown at the Public Theater. It was a production that would change the world. It was Hamilton. He adored it. The last play my dad read was Daniel's Husband, and he cried, as he always did, as he read it, telling me what a beautiful script it was, and unfortunately he didn't live to see it get produced. But I want you to know that my parents found a family in Off-Broadway. They were nourished by the love and camaraderie of all the wonderful friends they found in the theater. There was no distinction in our home growing up between friend and family. Whatever show they were involved in became part of the Farber family. I want to thank all of our family who are joining us today to celebrate my dad. He was one of a kind, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for bestowing him with this great honor.